Welcome to this new episode or Devops Linux course. In today's episode, we are going to continue with our section about Bash scripting, and in today's episode, we are talking about environment variables. And also, we are going to cover a very basic but common command that could be a little bit confusing, but is not at all. So, let's start creating a Bash file scripting. And sorry because the last episode I made a big mistake about the script, because once I tried to execute the script file, I been trying to execute the script command, because script is a command itself, as you can see, and maybe that's the reason why, because I can execute the file itself. For example, for example, if I have my bash script, let's create, I don't know, run, the extension doesn't matter, and even the first line doesn't matter. For example, in this we are going to cover some environment variables, so don't worry about it. For example, the current user is, and we can use the $sign, but instead of use lowercase that is related to variables, we are going to use uppercase related with environment variables, as we use in the common bash, command line bash or common shell. So once we are done with this, I can use run, but maybe Linux or Bash try to execute a command, because we are not specifying a file. So to specify a file, we have to give the absolute or a relative path. In my case, I'm going to use the relative path because I'm the current directory, and execute run. And as you can see, I have permission denied. That is pretty different when we use Bash. So it's interesting that to execute a command without bash, because bash is a command itself that already has the corresponding permission. In other hand, run doesn't have that permission, so we have to give permission to the file run using this command just right there, but that we already see about how to handle permissions and file permissions, user and file permissions, and we are going to execute a permission to run. And once we execute the command again, we can execute again the command. So as you can see, well, we don't have information, but it's not thanks to something special. Maybe it's because we are using a very basic and optimized Debian Docker, or a Debian container. So maybe in this container the environment variables are not defined at all. So we are going to try to create the variables, but I want to show you that, for example, in my local session, I can use user, and this works pretty nice. So to create an environment variable, but imagine that the variable is already created, it's already defined, we are going to use export user, and user is about, for example, I don't know, root, because we are using root, but I can put whatever I want, so let's use root. And once we are going to execute again the script, we are going to see root. So the current user is root. And also I can define environment variables inside the bash script, but there is a interesting hit that we are going to cover. So let's open the run file again, and we are going to use export, and I don't know, let me see something, because I didn't prove this before the video, so I want to see if print working directory. Okay, print working directory is working, so I don't know, let's create another one. So export I don't know, H, and we are going to use 69 9. And after that, we are going to use that environment variable. So maybe to avoid weird mistakes, we're going to use quotation marks and use the echo command again. And I don't know, your age is, and use age variable. So go back and execute the command again. And as you can see, the environment variable is working. But sometimes, for example, we are going to want to use a new instance of the shell. When I am talking about new instance, I am trying to say that not use the current one, that for example, I am not current bash session. For example, I want to execute this command in a new bash session because I want to see some already effects done. For example, I change something that it will only be comproved if I use a new session. Sometimes if you are pretty curious people, once you install some command line tools, the tools itself tell you, hey, please run this command or start a new terminal. That's the reason why and if you don't start a terminal and you try to execute the command, the system will tell you, or are going to tell you, hey, I don't know what is this command. For example, command not found. And the reason why is because we need to execute some new configuration instructions that will be run if we execute that command or if we run a new session. In this case, we are going to run a new session, but not for something special. It's just like if you sometimes need to execute a new bash session, well, there are two options. The most basic option is just run a new terminal, just use bash again, and you are welcome. You are in another session, or you can use the command bash and the parameter c. This allows to execute a command because after this argument we are going to use a command, and that command will be executed in another session, in another environment, in a new environment. So for example, I can use echo, but we have problems with this one. We are going to have problem with this one, but we are going to see after I execute the command. The command is executed. So I don't know, hello, and we are going to use, well, without environment variable. So we are going to execute this, and as you can see, we don't have problem with that because bash is enough intelligent to know that, yeah, if you are using this one, I'm going to look for their parent or not. We are going to look for their partner. So in this case is this one, but they notice that we continue and there is two other more and just make match between of them. But what happens if I use another one? And as you can see, this is the new session, but it's a pretty bug because bash is understanding that the command is not end at all, and they are asking, hey, continue with the thing that are you trying to send me. So I can execute another command, for example, ls, or I'm just adding a new string params. This is like a string itself. So to end or finish the string, it's enough if we use the corresponding closing quotation marks. Once I send this, as you can see, the command execute, and as you can see, I execute hello and also run because I execute ls. So it's interesting because I don't know, I think the final combination was something like this. Okay, I am sorry. For example, bash c echo hello and double quotation marks if I'm not wrong. Okay, that's right. And for example, ls and finish. And in this case, it's different because take the less literally. But in the other context, use it like as a command. So that's the reason why I always tell you, experiment, practice, try to perform your operation, because that's the only way that you are going to understand how the things or the stuff works. In this case, bash scripting. Bash is pretty weird because you are already seeing. You see that this operation is pretty different than this operation, but we send the same thing, but at the end we don't send the same thing. So let's continue with another one. So you already know how to execute a single command in a new bash instance without change the actual instance, because we are using the same one that we been executing since we start the video. But also we use bash -c to execute a new session, but just for one command. So let's use this same technique in another in the bash scripting. So go back, or let's go back to the bash scripting. In this case is run, and for example I can use the same command just right there, bash -c, and maybe just to avoid to maybe misunderstand the quotation marks order, we can use the simple one, that is just one, the simple one, and after that we can use the double one to use, like, I don't know, as a parameter, as a string, whatever you want. So let's use echo, and for example we can use the environment variables like h. So your no sé, I don't know. Let's use a new session just to understand the difference about the outputs. And in the new session, we are going to tell the user your age is h, and close the echo param and close the bash sentence, and the bash script is done. So let's execute it again, and as you can see, we have the current user is root, but remember this environment variable should exist in your system. In my system doesn't exist because it's just a very optimized version. Your age is 69, and also we use that we use that, the environment variable in a new session. This new session is pretty useful because, for example, imagine for a second, because I used to perform this a lot of times, that, for example, I am obsessed to create a startup command that allows me to install all the tools that I need once I make a factory reset or a restart of my machine. Well, when I told about restart, I am trying to tell you that I'm going to install a new version or a new operating system that doesn't have the files that they have in the last version. Maybe I like something like factory reset, but factory reset is not common in the Spanish slang. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't even know if it's common in the English one. So take it like something like that. So I obsess because I like to create a single bash script that allows me to execute all the tools that I need, configure a GitHub session, configure another stuff related with the terminal, and sometimes you need to execute a new session because the last changes are not available in the current session, because you have to restart that session. So thanks to the bash -c, you can execute operation in a new session, and you are able to notice that changes without create a new one, because in the past, I don't know, I used to create different files, maybe through different phases or steps. For example, the pre-script, the script, the post script, because depending on the order, I have to create a new terminal, or otherwise I don't have access to the commands that are already installed. So this is pretty useful for that reason. So I think we already seen that what I want to show you. I hope this video was helpful and see you in the next time. Bye bye.